Hey everyone and welcome. The 2.1.2 update has brought some exciting changes to weapons we already know and love. And after seeing what it did for Silent Anabasis and the Icy Rain, I couldn't help but dig into another fan favourite. This time we're taking a closer look at the KAM Abyss Glance, a weapon that's always had solid synergy with Frost Vortex builds, but now feels like it's been given a second wind. The new update tweaks how Frost Vortex is triggered and scales, giving this weapon a fresh identity that's worth exploring. So let's break down what's changed, how it plays now, and whether it's worth slotting into your build after the 2.1.2. Before the update, the gun would trigger a Frost Vortex after you landed 14 hits. If you hit an enemy's weak spot, it would count as 2 hits instead of 1, so you could trigger it faster with good aim. The Vortex would deal more damage to enemies the closer they were to its centre, up to 250% more. On top of that, you always had a flat plus 30% bonus to your frost damage. After the update, the gun works a lot more smoothly. Now just hitting any enemy triggers the Frost Vortex automatically, but it has a 7-second cooldown. However, every time you hit something, that cooldown gets reduced by 0.5 seconds. So the more you stay in the fight, the more often you can trigger the Vortex. There is also a new stacking bonus. If you hit a non-meta human enemy while they're standing inside your Vortex, it powers up your next one. Each hit gives you a plus 5 extra damage on the next Vortex, stacking up to 10 times, and just like before, you still get a plus 30% boost to all your frost damage. Now, when it comes to armor sets, there are a lot of different routes you can take, but I like to build for maximum damage output. So for this setup, I'm running a 3-piece Treacherous set. That does mean my HP takes a big hit though, but we've got ways to work around that. I'm pairing it with a 2-piece Blackstone set, which gives us a stacking buff. Every time you deal elemental damage, you gain a stack of Warm Sensation. That's a plus 2% elemental damage for 2 seconds, stacking up to 5 times, and it can trigger every 0.5 seconds, so the damage can really ramp up quickly. Now, another solid option is going with a 2-piece Shelter set instead, which gives you a flat plus 8% elemental damage. It's easier to manage in some cases. I get that consistently triggering elemental damage can be a bit tricky against normal mobs, but honestly, with how this build performs, I don't really feel the downside. In high-end content like silo runs and boss fights, I definitely notice that extra 2% damage stacking up. And as for our key piece, we're taking the Frost Tactical Vest. Frost Vortex generates ice spikes that deal frost damage of 120% psi intensity. Once again, there's 2 options here for our secondary. They both have the exact same job, and that's to proc Bullseye. During boss fights and one-on-one content, I use the AWS Bingo Sniper, and content when there's multiple enemies, I use the DE50 Wildfire. With these weapons, we can trigger the Bullseye effect, applying an 8% vulnerability debuff to enemies and increasing the damage they take. Okay, so let's turn this into this. Next up, let's talk about Deviants. When running a Frost build, you've got 2 main options, the Snow Sprite and the Polar Jelly. The Polar Jelly offers higher damage output, but is more of a stationary pick, which means you'll need to reposition it often during fights. On the other hand, the Snow Sprite is a lot easier to manage, since it moves with you, so you're not constantly dragging it from one target to the next. Both are solid choices. It really just comes down to your playstyle and what feels better for you. Alright, let's talk mods, starting with the main gun. We're going with Cryoblast. Every time we trigger a Frost Vortex, it boosts our Frost Vortex damage by 4%, stacking up to 5 times and lasting for 4 seconds. We want to focus on attributes that boost both Frost Vortex damage and overall Frost damage. That's how we really ramp up the numbers. Moving on to our secondary weapons, the AWS Bingo and the DE50 Wildfire, we're taking Vulnerability Amplifier. The Bullseye gives us a plus 8% vulnerability. Focus on Bullseye duration. Onto our gear mods, starting with our helmet. We're taking Deviation Expert. This gives us a flat plus 20% to our status damage. Next is the mask, and we're taking Frostwave Wither. Our Frost Vortex final damage receives a plus 30% bonus, which decreases by 8% every second after. Next is our chest, and we're taking Ardent Shield. We gain a shield when calling upon our Deviant, which will come in handy as we're running a low sanity build. Okay, now it's our bottoms, and we're taking Elemental Resonance. For each instance of elemental damage dealt, the next magazine grants elemental damage plus 1% for 15 seconds, all the way up to 24%. Up next is the gloves, and we're taking Status Enhancement. We gain another flat plus 20% to our status damage. And lastly, our shoes, and we're taking Rush Hour. Every 10% HP loss grants plus 4% melee, weapon, and status damage. Now it's time for food and drink buffs. If you're running chef class, congratulations, because you get to run double drink and food buffs. However, if you're not, you want to prioritise taking Whimsical Drink, which gives you a plus 25% status damage. Now here comes a choice for you. If you can consistently land bullseye, then you want to be taking Mixed Fried Hot Dog, which gives a plus 20% increased damage against enemies affected by bullseye. If not, then there's two options left, and that's canned minty meat, which you get from the Way of Winter scenario, as well as Endless Dream, and this gives us a 15% frost damage increase. If not, then there's Surprise Spring Roll, which gives us a 5 to 15% elemental damage boost that doubles when your HP drops below 40%. Now, if you are running chef class, like no chefs, you have a choice to make between the canned minty meat and the Surprise Spring Roll. And to finalise this build, we're taking the Kukuri knife. When defeating an enemy with a heavy strike, our psi intensity gets a plus 20%. And also, we restore HP by 200% of our psi intensity. The Abyss Glance is absolutely bonkers. A high-impact Ice Fiend rifle that turns engagements into slow-motion chaos. It clears Nightmare adds remarkably well, slowing enemies on impact and leaving behind a trail of icy explosions. It's pure crowd control mayhem with a stylish frosty twist. But that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed my take on the Abyss Glance. Please like, comment, and even subscribe for more builds and guides. Stay safe, matters.